Generally, if a student comes to you with a diagnosis of FASD, they qualify for chronic health funding and therefore should have some supports in place within the school system. What every teacher needs to know about FASD. FASD is an invisible disability. This is often a disadvantage for individuals affected by FASD because people constantly expect them to function according to their chronological age, when developmentally they may be a lot younger. People also tend to be a lot more free with comments and criticism if they do not see an individual is visually disabled. This goes for other students as well, so students are harsher on their peers if they do not see a visible reason for their deficits. Every individual affected by FASD will have different strengths and challenges based on when alcohol was consumed and how it interacted with their developing cells. This means that strategies that worked for one student affected by FASD cannot be expected to always work for the next student. An individual affected by FASD IQ score is not a very good indication of their functioning, so an individual affected by FASD could have an average or even high IQ, but still struggle with daily living skills. This is because individuals with FASD typically have a low adaptive quotient. This means that they struggle with skills that are required for them to be successful in daily life. For example, how to get dressed, personal hygiene, cooking and cleaning. So don't let a high IQ fool you about a student's functioning level. Oftentimes, students affected by FASD can tell that they are different from other students, but don't know why. And this is really hard on their self-esteem. Remember when teaching that oftentimes students affected by FASD's greatest desire is to look exactly like all the other kids. So create strategies that will not embarrass the student, and remember that if the student does have a meltdown, they're going to be upset about having lost it in front of their peers. Students with FASD have generally experienced a lot of failure. So this can be tied into having an invisible disability and always having people expect higher performances than is possible from them. One consequence of this is a disproportionately high dropout rate for students affected by FASD, as well as a higher chance of secondary disabilities such as depression, anxiety, and other mental health concerns. Individuals affected by FASD have a disproportionately high suicide rate. This is why it's extremely important to take a strength-based approach when working with students affected by FASD. Students want to be successful, so identify their strengths and build upon them. If they have a diagnosis, their strengths should be included in the report. Because of numerous factors, including low functioning levels and experiencing so much failure, students affected by FASD are very vulnerable. Students with FASD often do very poorly in social situations. If you consider that the majority of communication is nonverbal and think about all the decoding, interpreting, and brain functioning that goes into reading all these nonverbal signs, it's not surprising that it is an area that many individuals affected by FASD struggle with. Because they are so often socially isolated and desperate for revenge, individuals impacted by FASD can be easy marks and are often talked into participating in a long list of negative behaviors. If at all possible, connect the student affected by FASD to a peer mentor and discourage them from hanging out with students who will take advantage of them. Remember that students affected by FASD have a significant desire to be liked. Show that you like them through compliments and positive feedback. The school system can be very hard on parents of students affected by FASD. Take the time to listen to the parents' recommendation. They know their child best. Every single year, a parent or caregiver has to advocate for their child and educate different teachers, EAs, and administrators. This is exhausting. Also, as the student gets older, there becomes less and less supports available to them within the school system. This is incredibly frustrating to parents and caregivers because the system is telling them they expect the students to become increasingly independent. But the literature and experts on FASD say that the individual will always have to rely on external brain supports and that they may never be able to operate independently. Help parents by reaching out to them and asking how to best support their child in the classroom. And honor their recommendations. Oftentimes, students affected by FASD have highly specialized diets because different foods have an impact on their behavior, or because they may not be physically able to digest or absorb nutrients from certain foods. If a child has a special diet, respect that and do not give food or food treats out in class. This is an area where teachers often step on parents' toes. It's just best to stay away from food treats. Staying in school is a protective factor in individuals living with FASD, and so we really want to encourage individuals affected by FASD to stay in school and to graduate or attain a leaving school certificate. So individuals living with FASD are often affected by other medical and mental health concerns. Individuals affected by FASD may also be struggling with other physical disorders. There's also the possibility of different mental health disorders. So it is not uncommon for individuals affected by FASD to also be suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder because of trauma suffered in early childhood, or radical attachment disorder, or oppositional defiance disorder as a result of being placed into the foster care system. Once again, there is a disproportionate number of individuals affected by FASD within the foster care system. There's also a disproportionately high rate of individuals affected by FASD struggling with depression and anxiety. So when you see behaviors in class, remember that FASD may not be the only factor at work. A common myth about students affected by FASD is that they cannot learn. This is not true. They absolutely can learn, they just learn differently and may have to be taught a concept up to 1,000 times before they understand it. This can be frustrating for teachers, but persevere because they are worth it. Although every individual impacted by FASD is different, there are certain problem behaviors that many individuals affected by FASD struggle with, and they are the inability to learn from consequences and understand cause and effect, lying and stealing. They get it one day and then don't get it the next. They're impulsive, rigid or black and white, and literal thinkers, unable to apply learning from one setting to the next. It's important to look at these behaviors through an FASD lens. Unable to learn from consequences is a result of alcohol interfering with the development of brain cells. So instead of using consequences to teach a lesson, try to be as proactive as possible. If they get it one day and don't get it the next, this is likely a result of memory impairment. The majority of individuals affected by FASD will have some sort of memory impairment, so reteach the concept to the student. Do not say, "But you understood this yesterday," because it is not helpful. Lying is often also a consequence of memory impairment. Individuals may try to fill in the blanks in the memory or accidentally combine several memories together. It helps to think of lying as confabulation, and remember that oftentimes it is not deliberate. Stealing can happen because of confusion over the concept of ownership. It is not uncommon for individuals affected by FASD to think that somebody only owns something when they're physically holding it. So teach what ownership is explicitly. Stealing, however, can also be a result of impulsivity. So individuals affected by FASD are often impulsive because their brain doesn't make all the necessary connections in time to tell them that something is not a good idea. Remember, this is a safety factor, and encourage students who have problems with impulsivity to build in a 10-second waiting period before they do something. Gray area thinking requires higher brain functioning. Individuals affected by FASD may not have those abilities, which is why they are so rigid and black and white in their thinking. Remember that a student affected by FASD suffers from organic and permanent brain damage due to prenatal exposure to alcohol. Do not expect them to be able to control all of their behaviors and immediately learn from their mistakes. It is up for the adults involved in the life of the individual affected by FASD to build in external supports to make up for this individual's deficits. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of a strength-based approach. So to get you started on a strength-based approach, here are some areas where individuals affected by FASD often exhibit strengths. So they are often friendly, trusting, loyal, affectionate, compassionate, nurturing, highly verbal, wonderful storytellers, creative, determined, hardworking, energetic, highly moral, curious, a good sense of humor, and have a sense of wonder. So if you've noticed, a lot of these strengths are actually what could be considered deficits, but looked through an FASD lens. So highly moral, if you're looking at it through a deficit lens, you're going to say they're rigid, black and white thinkers and cannot compromise. If you're looking through a strength-based lens, then you're going to say they're highly moral. Trusting, if you're going strength-based, you're going to say trusting, but if you're going deficit-based, you're going to say naive, impulsive, and can't think of cause and effects. So think strength-based, it's going to be much more effective, and it is going to put everything off on the right foot. When preparing to have a student affected by FASD in your class, think about the following 5 factors. All 5 factors should be addressed for the student to be successful. The first is to look at specific learning disabilities, including any problems with memory and judgment. Think about what strategies you can use to accommodate for any of these deficits. Then think about their social skills. Can you partner the student with a leader in your class? Can you provide them with helpful hints about where to hang out, what is cool? Remembering that students affected by FASD often be explicitly taught implicit information. So it's really important to foster that student's sense of belonging, as it will be a good indicator about whether or not they will be successful in school, and it is a protective factor as well. Then, what is the student's athletic abilities? Are they a strength? Is it a way that they can be popular with the other students? And are they getting enough exercise in the day to manage their energy levels? And finally, what are the student's fine and gross motor skills? Are any extra supports required? For example, does the student struggle with the fine motor skill of writing? Would it be easier for them to type? So considering all of these different factors. So how to be successful when working with students affected by FASD? The first thing to do is always separate the student from the behavior, using an FASD lens and remembering that all students want to be successful, so they are trying the best that they can. And remembering that structuring for success is the best way to go. So if a student experiences continuous failure, they are not very highly motivated. Success is the way to go. And also remember that success looks different for everyone. So success for an individual with FASD may be showing up to class every single day with the right supplies. It may not be getting the worksheet done every single day, but maybe that's something that you can be worked to. So success is different for everyone. Be flexible. Give as many chances as are needed. Individuals with FASD are likely not going to be able to get it in the first 3 chances that you offer. Be proactive and make sure that if they do anything in the classroom, that it's something that you can give them a second or third or fourth or fifth or sixth chance for. Remember that being fair is meeting everybody's needs. It's not giving everybody the same thing. So if you're worried that other students will take advantage, that is a good thing to fall back on. Structure, consistency, and routine will help the student affected by FASD function at their best. So that is the most important. What external structures are you putting in place? Are you being consistent? And do you have a predictable routine? Communication is often where breakdowns happen. When communicating with individuals affected by FASD, keep in mind that less is more. Use as few words as possible and be as clear and direct. Also keep in mind that students affected by FASD are very literal thinkers and may not understand sayings, exaggerations, and metaphors. Another thing to remember is not to give too many directions at once. Many individuals affected by FASD will struggle to perform more than 3 directions at once, and 3 might be a high estimate. Many can only do 2 at once. This means that if you told students to go to their seats, pull out a piece of paper, write their names and date, and a response to a chapter they just read, it will not happen. A good indication of how many steps at once a student can handle will be in their assessment report, or ask their parents or caregivers. Other forms of communication that just serve to confuse and distract and frustrate students affected by FASD include sarcasm, put-downs, interrupting, lecturing, dwelling on the past, talking in third person. Don't do them. They're not helpful. There is a lot to consider in working with students affected by FASD. I hope this presentation has given you a good introduction to the topic. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions, and I encourage you to look at the handout I have posted on Course Spaces and Facebook. To end this presentation, I wanted to reiterate what I think are 4 really important points. The first one is students with FASD often have a complicated history with the school system. They've likely had problems with peers and past teachers, and have oftentimes been suspended or experienced disrupted schooling experiences. Students with FASD will likely have struggled both with academics and with the social aspects of school. They come to you with this history. Remember this history and try to give as positive of an experience for them as you can. The second thing to remember is that parents and caregivers are a great source of knowledge about the student. Use them and respect their requests and recommendations. Reach out to them and try to include them in the process. They will appreciate it, and it will work better for you as well. Another thing is memory deficits affect the student's ability to learn and are a factor in many of the problem behaviors that you see. So think about how memory informs your own personal identity and how memory deficits would impact your life. This can help you develop a better understanding of how an individual affected by FASD can struggle through their memory deficits. The final thing is developing social skills and friendships should be a priority. We all have belonging needs, and these needs do take precedence. So lots of students affected by FASD are in school focusing on life skills, of which social skills are very, very important. So keep that in mind and don't put the focus on academics unless that's where the focus should be. Thank you very, very much for your time, and I hope that you find this helpful. And I do encourage you to email me with any questions. So thanks again.